Welcome to another edition of What Barrie's Talking About from Barrie 360. I'm Dan Blakely. On this week's program, winter arrives officially on Sunday morning, though it's felt like winter for the last 3 weeks or so. We find out what more the season has in store. It's a merry season for many, but not everybody. We address the stress, pressure, and loneliness many experience this time of year. Food bank use is up across the country. Karen Shu from the Barrie Food Bank joins us with the local picture. We'll talk fire safety at this time of year and why a carbon monoxide alarm might be a better gift than one of those new fire extinguishing blankets being advertised. And local entrepreneur Don Mucci took her business model for Life Squad into the Dragon's Den, looking for help to grow the business. She can't tell us if they jumped on board with her. The episode won't air until the new year, but she has some fun stories to tell about the experience. We get the conversation started after this. Been snowing pretty much daily since December 1st, and it's not even winter yet. That changes Sunday morning just after 10 with the official switch from fall to winter. We're joined by climatologist David Phillips. David, we're usually asking you this time of year if it'll be a white Christmas, but that doesn't appear to be necessary this year.
In 50 years, the question always asked me of this time, are we going to have a white Christmas? I haven't heard that once. You're the only person that's mentioned that to me in this whole year. And they just look outside and say, well, we don't know what to ask. We know. I think we got now a white Easter, you know. I mean, forget the Christmas.
It's going to last that long? Oh, dear. Anyway, we've been inundated, and we talked before about Muskoka last year, Bracebridge area, Gravenhurst got hit really bad. Apparently it was our turn this year. So what's happened? Where did all this come from?
Well, you know, Dan, I did remember we talked in the fall about the fall forecast, and you know what? In Canada, we had the warmest fall on record. In Ontario, the fourth warmest on record. But the problem is November came, and November is part of fall. I mean, we often claim that it's December, January, February that's the winter, and it's September, October, November. So September and October were on fire. I mean, more than 2 degrees warmer than normal, not a flake of snow. And then all of a sudden, November came, and things cooled right off. It still didn't make the season colder than normal or even normal. It still was the warmest because it just shows you we had 30-degree temperatures in October. I mean, the water out there, and we now know how warm the water was because we've seen the lake effect from it, was just like a hot tub out there. And then so finally things came in November, and there was also kind of an early threat from the polar vortex in November saying, you know, I'm about to leave home and go on vacation south, and so get ready. And people kind of, well, they thought about it. They kind of ignored it. They said, well, that's just a forecast. And boy, did it ever arrive on the first part of December, and it stayed with us ever since. We haven't had one melting temperature up to the middle of the month of December. No melting temperatures. We've not seen any rain at all. And now, you know, a couple of days before the first day of winter, we're going to get some rain. We're going to see some melting temperatures. So it's kind of the polar vortex has gone home. Its vacation is over. It's gone back. Hey, it may come back. Sometimes you only get one bout of it. Sometimes you get 2 or 3. Sometimes when the next time it gets energized and moves, it goes to Europe and freezes them, you say. So you just know it's a culprit there that can, in fact, give you good old-fashioned kind of a winter. And that's certainly what we've seen in the last little while. I have been really surprised how persistent the weather has been. You know, in the last 3 weeks, we've had only snow, and it snowed on every day, believe it or not. It might have been a trace, might have been a skiff of snow, but there's been snow every 20 of those 21 days.
Wow.
I'll tell you the day it didn't. Piece of trivia. December the 2nd. I don't remember it, but apparently no flakes fell on December the 2nd.
It seems so long ago, David.
Yes.
Any notion as to how much? I mean, we all see the piles at the side of the road, and sure. I can't see over top of the drifts on either side of my driveway now to throw the snow over. How much have we received?
Well, I would think, say, by the middle of counted up to the middle of, say, the month, we've had about 100 centimeters of snow. So a meter of snow. And what's sort of interesting is that is not record. It's certainly more than normal. Normally by that time we would have had maybe 68 centimeters, so maybe about 45% more than we normally would get. certainly we've had that in cold temperatures, so the snow has lasted. I think, I was laughing. Somebody said to me before the first day of winter, they were fed up with winter. And we hadn't even had winter. A week before, we were saying, enough's enough. Turn it off, you say. Okay, I'll cry uncle. And so we've had some heavy dumps of snow, and there's been some wind. And these have all been pretty well lake effect. And, it just shows you the direction of the wind, how important that was. Last year, when Gravenhurst got almost 50 centimeters of snow by the 1st of December, well, their winds came right off of Lake Huron, Georgian Bay, where we got a trace of snow in Barrie, and it was coming from off land. So it didn't really give us any. But this time, we've seen up in Muskoka country, they've had less snow than we have had at times. And we haven't had big dumps. I remember there was a huge dump the last couple of days of November this year. We got 34 centimeters over 2.5 days. Early December, we got another 11, 12, and then just recently, middle of the month or a little earlier than that, about 23, 24 centimeters. So it's not been, as I say, record amounts, but it's got staying power. It's just there for us to look. Every time we look out the window, we see what has accumulated over the last 3 weeks.
It reminds me of winters when I lived here in Barrie in the 80s.
Okay.
We had snow like this.
Right.
Maybe not this early. But we had lots of snow, and it stayed around. My oldest boy was 2 or 3 at the time, and we went on adventures climbing snowbanks for hours.
Yes.
There was that much snow, and this is what it reminds me of.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it reminds me, I remember the 70s was considered to be one of the snowiest decades, and there were times there that boy, you just got a heavy amount of snow. It was almost like after Halloween it started, and it just didn't stop, and you just accumulated it. And, of course, we're vulnerable because of the lake effect. The lakes are still open. I mean, every time the cold air comes and the winds are favorable, that lake effect snow engine gets turned off. This is not snow coming from Texas or Colorado. We can't blame you-know-who for this snow. I mean, it is really our homegrown kind of snow. But it just shows you how it's probably the toughest weather bout to forecast are lake effect, because you can have some 30, 50 centimeters coming, and then all of a sudden the winds change direction, and you don't get very much. And so it spreads around. There's more of that misery is spread to many communities as opposed to just you.
So winter is nigh.
Yes.
As you alluded, many people are already sick of it, and it's not
Right.
it's not even here yet. How much more winter are we going to get as we course through the coming months?
Well, we've already had a little taste of it before the first official day of winter, when we saw after almost a month of freezing temperatures and snow, we see something else that's very characteristic of our winter. We see melting temperatures and we see rain. So that is going to come. Now, that could create a flooding situation. That snow going to melt, and so the air temperatures will melt it. I don't think it will be a risk without a white Christmas. I think that's clearly we just have too much snow to take that away, because all you really need is 2 centimeters of snow sitting on your ground and in your backyard. And so I think that we'll get a little episode of some warmth and rain. We'll kind of soften things up, help to remove maybe some of the slush and get the sidewalks and roadways a little clearer. You can see the pavement. But then the snow and the cold is going to come back, but not in the same kind of vigor that it did earlier. So we think that the polar vortex, yes, has gone home, but as I say, it can come back or go elsewhere, but it could still be around. It's always a threat to us. It's kind of interesting. We look at our winter forecast from the first day of winter on to rest of December, January, February, and into March. And, normally there's three possibilities. It could be warmer than normal, could be colder than normal, or it could be in between. It could be normal, seasonable. But there's a fourth category, which is embarrassing because it's called we don't know. And isn't that the one that people say, well, don't you always know? And I said, no. And the reason for that is, let me explain. It's kind of interesting from a science point of view. So we run the supercomputer, and it goes over time. So we have 2 major models, and then we run it for 10 days. And so twice a day, 2 models for 10 days. So there's 40 runs of the computer. Now, when we say it's going to be colder than normal, then we look at those 40 runs and we say, how many of those said colder, how many said warmer, and how many said normal? Well, in this case, when you say colder than normal, then the majority said colder. When it's warmer than normal, the majority say warmer than normal. But what happens when there's an equal number saying warmer, colder, seasonable? You throw up your hands and you say, pick your poison. You don't know. It could go either way. And unfortunately, that is the kind of look that we have right now. And let me tell you why it is, why it's so uncertain, why we don't have necessarily a lot of confidence in our forecast, is because there's a lot of competing forces. We have polar vortex we've already seen. It's not just a one-off. It can be a winter of polar vortices. We have also La Nina. La Nina, cold water in the Pacific. We've talked often about that, Dan, and it generally produces more of a winter than less of a winter. So that's one end of the tug-of-war pulling. The other side is climate change. We know those winters of the 80s are not like they are now. They're warmer, they're milder, they're shorter, and less snow, or not maybe much snow, but we get rain with snow. And so that's one issue. And the other one is that the ocean waters are very warm. And I look out there and I see the Pacific is like on fire. Hudson Bay is wide open. We look at down the tropics, it's very warm. The only area that, and up there in Nunavut, it's the Baffin Inlet and Davis Strait are just very warm water. I mean, cold waters, but they're warmer than they should be, you say. And so this is the other end of the tug-of-war. So who is going to win? I mean, that's the problem. And so that's why I think what we're going to see is, so here's my fearless forecast, is I'm going to say that we've had a tough beginning, but it'll get less tough as we move on because of 2 things. One, because climate change is always a factor in our winters. Clearly, Dan, our winters aren't what they used to be. And that is, now, the thing is we get used to warm winters. So even if it's not as warm as the previous one, we think it's cold, you see. So there's a new kind of a threshold there. Mm-hmm. But La Nina is dying. It's strong. It's kind of weaky to moderate now, but in early January and clearly by the end of January, it'll be dead in the water. And so that will take a sting out of it. It doesn't mean we can't get cold air because you can still get the polar vortex coming back. So my sense is that we're going to have a little bit of everything, but it won't be as tough as it was at the beginning of the winter. And the beginning of the winter, I mean, it's been absolutely fantastic for skiing. Anybody in the recreation business have got smiles from ear to ear. The white gold out there, it means that, hey, there's guaranteed snowboarding and skiing between Christmas and New Year's. And if they can make their money then, they've had a good year. And snowmobilers, I think they're getting revving up. And ice fishers, well, no, that's not yet. But certainly with the cool air that we've had, the ice will come earlier than it did in last year or other years. So my sense is that those that hate winter will say, well, we had enough of it in the last part of winter. It wasn't as tough as the first half. And those that really love winter, well, they've had their time and they'll have more time. We still have the dead of winter is what we call in Barrie about the 23rd of January. So that's the moment I celebrate. I'm not a big fan of winter. But on the 23rd of January, I always raise a glass to say, okay, the back of winter is broken. There's less winter ahead of us than behind us, statistically at least. That is not necessarily reality.
All right, I am going to call you on January 23rd to see if you're really hoisting a glass, because we're out of the woods in terms of the worst of it. And we'll see if you're still singing the same tune.
Okay, Dan. I appreciate that. I'll look forward to your call.
Thanks so much, as always.
Thank you, Dan.
Going to be a lean Christmas for many. More and more people relying on food banks, some of whom might surprise you. Barrie 360's Ian McLennan gets the numbers and more from Karen Shue, Executive Director of the Barrie Food Bank.
There were recent reports, both Feed Ontario coming out warning of the severity of basically a crisis in Ontario, the number of people who are accessing food banks. Bring it home for us here in Barrie, and year over year, month over month. Are you alarmed?
Very alarmed. So, our situation, we're in a crisis mode, right? So we're seeing more visits, more often, by more people, and it's not showing any signs of leveling off.
And who are they? Who are the clients?
So in terms of our demographics, our clients represent the full spectrum of our community. 38% of our clients are children, which should be deeply concerning. 5% are seniors on fixed income, and, fixed income certainly hasn't kept pace with affordability. 70% of our clients are on some form of social service support like Ontario Works or Ontario Disability, and those support systems were never designed for today's cost of living. But the fastest growing segment that we're seeing, and this will surprise many of your listeners, about 20% of our clients have employment income. They're working part-time jobs, juggling multiple jobs, seasonal jobs, gig work, and often without benefits and often without job security. And so these clients are working, but the work is precarious and it doesn't cover rent and basic, costs anymore.
Have you got some numbers for us, and what that stand out?
Right now we are supporting over 8,100 visits last month, and that's 16% over last year. And if you take a look at a longer lens, it's nearly triple from pre-pandemic levels. It just tells that this isn't a temporary crisis anymore. It tells me that this is an ongoing affordability crisis.
The Ontario Hunger Report indicated that food insecurity is very much linked to housing vulnerability. According to their research, it shows that some food bank users with stable housing would be at risk of homelessness if they didn't have access to supplemental food support like what the Barrie Food Bank provides. So it's a real domino effect, isn't it?
Well, what we're seeing is that many households, it's the housing costs that have risen so high. We have clients that are reporting that it's 60 to 90% of their income is being spent on housing. And housing is, after you pay for rent and utilities, transportation, medicine, those are fixed costs. The only variable left in their budget is food. And so they're coming to the food bank because they're trying to stay housed. It's not that they've mismanaged their money. There is no disposable income. And so being able to access the food that we provide allows them to pay their rent on time. It allows them to keep the lights on, to avoid eviction. And so without our support, even, that buffer is gone. Even the smallest financial shock, maybe it's a rent increase, or maybe it's a sick day, for crying out loud, or maybe, a higher utility bill or a car repair. Just a minor financial shock could put them into housing instability or homelessness.
I read where some food banks are even worried about their own survival, especially smaller ones, as demand increases. Has your organization been forced to pivot, for lack of a better word, in terms of how you provide the food, how much you provide, and who gets it?
The answer is no. I mean, by the generosity of this community, this is a community unlike any other community. So the answer is no. I don't know how we do it. We're working harder. We're working smarter. We're purchasing better than we were, years before. And we're getting access to more free food. So we have a fleet of vehicles now. We've got loading docks. We've got, 10,000 square foot facilities. So we can make opportunities happen that other food banks can't. We do operate as a hub for some of the regional food banks, but we've got the facility here in Barrie. And so we're not at that point where we're certainly not no one ever gets turned away for food.
Right.
The only lever I have to pull is food. So if the donations don't come in the way that the demand is, the only thing I have to do is reduce entitlements and categories. And thankfully, I haven't had to do that for, since I started in this role.
Have you had to change, though, in terms of how much you distribute or what you distribute?
We have been blessed in so many ways that we've been able to increase in certain categories. For example, we used to have to cut a dozen of eggs in half because we couldn't afford a full dozen for singles and couples. We had some tremendous sponsorships by Ripple of Kindness and, the Tim Hortons Holiday Smile campaign. These are all unbudgeted bonuses that we received that we could see our way through to offering. Plus, we're now buying those eggs cheaper than we ever did, and they're being delivered. So a whole combination of generosity and just working smarter helps us to maintain and or increase the amount of food that we provide. But we also don't purchase cookies anymore, for example. So we have to make some tough choices in terms of what we can and cannot purchase.
So prioritizing, I guess?
Prioritizing.
Food banks were supposed to be emergency support. Do you see your food bank as emergency support, or both that and a lifeline now that's maybe long-term?
So when we were established in 1984, we were established as a temporary solution to the crisis at the time. So here we are 41 years later. We were not created to function as a permanent part of the social safety net. We really weren't. We're glad to be able to be part of the response, but we can't be the solution. When we're seeing the demand growing year after year and the resources that we're relying on, so that would be donations or volunteers or warehouse space or staffing, they're not growing at the same pace. And so, the complexity of the need has changed. People aren't visiting once or twice now because they faced a crisis. They're now coming to us month after month because they simply can't afford the cost of living. There is a breaking point, for sure, but it's not that we're going anywhere. We're not going to suddenly close our doors, but it may show up with reduced food variety or, limits on how often people can support. It could be volunteer burnout or staff fatigue, but we're going to continue to do everything we can to meet the need.
Now, you have associations that, speak on behalf of food banks
Feed
across
Ontario,
the province.
yeah.
But if you had an opportunity, and maybe you've already, to sit down face-to-face with whether it's your local MP, member of parliament, or provincial parliament, maybe the premier and the prime minister, maybe it's words they've already heard before, but what would you say to them? What would at least help, maybe not resolve the issue, but make a difference?
I guess the one thing that your listeners might be surprised by, I don't want government money. I'm going to let that one sink in, because the reality is food banks don't want government money because the goal isn't to grow food banks. It's not to make us larger. It's to reduce our need for them. And so when governments fund food banks, that's a response after the fact that people are already in crisis. And so what I'd rather see, what works better is to put money into people's pockets, right? And so when governments invest in upstream activities like affordable housing, like increased social supports, then the downstream pressures on, like us, the food bank, gets better. And, that's always better for everyone.
You've got a holiday campaign. How long does that run until, and what were the targets?
So the holiday campaign is called Close the Gap. And it just recognizes that there is a gap between minimum wage and living wage. There's a gap between affordable housing and guaranteed income housing. There's so many gaps that exist in our society. So we're just themed at Close the Gap. Our goal is to raise $1.16 million and 580,000 pounds of food between now and December 31st. And those numbers are quite specific because it's 16% more than last year, because our demand is up 16% more. And so that's the money that we need in order to maintain our services. But the encouraging news, I'm pleased to report that we're about 80% of that campaign goal. $1 million is within sight with what I see coming for the balance of this week. Our food donations are a little bit behind. We're only about 50% of our target. But this last week where all the food drives are coming in, and schools and churches and community groups are all rallying around. So I am optimistic that we're going to hit that target as well. But it's been very, very powerful to see how people are showing up for their community, and we couldn't do it without you guys.
If you're able to make a cash donation, visit barriefoodbank.org. Food donations can be made at most grocery stores. This is what Barrie's talking about from Barrie 360. I'm Dan Blakely. Want to talk about holiday fire safety, so we invited our friend Kate Foster back from Barrie Fire Service, the education officer.
That's right. Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm great, thank you.
Good. I bet you get a lot of questions this time of year.
We do, yeah. It's a really popular time for fire safety questions, and we're always trying to get information out about how to be a little extra safe during the holidays.
Big reason I brought you in is because I get these pop-up ads on social media all the time, and I've seen commercials about these fire blankets.
Yes.
And then I saw some at a big box store. I thought they were only American, but I saw some at a big box store, and I started thinking, hey, that might be a great gift for my kids.
Yeah.
And then I saw a post from, I think, the Oakville Fire Department saying, hold on a minute. Then I called you, and you said, yeah. So what's the deal with these fire blankets?
Well, I will say the algorithm out there is very strong these days. So we get this question almost daily. And our response right now is that fire blankets are not yet endorsed by the Ontario Fire Marshal, which means at this point in time, they don't have the sort of Ontario stamp of approval that we're looking for them to have. And so we want them to meet our Canadian and Ontario testing standards, get that stamp, and then we will endorse them. So for right now, it's a no on fire blankets, but it doesn't mean that it's a never. It could come up. We just need a little more time to make sure they're working properly.
Is there something in particular that you're not quite sure about with them?
You know, it's like anything. We are today, in today's day and age, we're innovating and creating things so quickly, and that's wonderful. Our society moves so fast. We just need to slow things down a little bit and check all the boxes to make sure that they've been properly tested. So it just takes a little bit of time for testing. I don't think it's like anything. Even fire extinguishers took a bit of time to be tested before we could say that they could go into homes. So we just want to make sure that everything is working perfectly for people, and then they'll get those stamps.
All right, let's talk about the alternatives then in situations where people are thinking these blankets are going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Right.
Stovetop fire,
Yeah.
usually it's a lid.
I always say, think about what fire wants, take it away. Fire wants oxygen, it wants fuel, and it wants heat. If we just think about not giving it those things, then the fire should go out. So if you have a stovetop fire, putting a lid on it takes the oxygen away. One step further is to then turn your heat off from your element and just be patient. Don't lift that lid too quickly, because the minute you lift it too quickly, the oxygen goes back towards it and it can reignite. So just take your time, be patient, but you can use science to actually extinguish these fires.
What about something that develops inside the oven? Because we're cooking greasy birds this time of year, and there's the off chance that some of that grease and oil is going to spill onto a heating element and create a fire.
Yes.
What do you do in that case?
Same principles. So we want to think about making sure we don't introduce oxygen. So keep the oven door closed and turn off the heat. Keep a close eye on it, be patient, and the fire should extinguish. Now, we are dealing with grease in the kitchen a lot, so the biggest thing we talk about is please do not try to put water on any of these types of fires. It's really just trying to take the oxygen and heat away. And if you do have an extinguisher in your kitchen that you're maintaining, you're looking for either an A, B, C extinguisher or a K extinguisher. Those are the types that would be best for your kitchen.
All right, I want to come back to fire extinguishers, and I think we probably were going to anyway.
Yeah.
The other thing I've seen in the ads for these blankets is them getting thrown over top of a barbecue. Not too many people still using it this time of year. Right. I do, some do. Right. So what's the situation there?
So again, with the barbecues, if you're still using them, the main thing is to give them the space that they need. So don't place them underneath, a deck or an overhang. Keep them away from any wood or things that could ignite with that heat. And again, it's very similar principles. If you have grease buildup on your barbecue and all of a sudden you open it because you introduced oxygen and you get those flames, close the lid, turn the heat off. You don't have to get fancy with these things. Just think about what the fire wants and don't give it to it.
Back to fire extinguishers. They don't last forever. They need to be checked on a regular basis.
They do. And a lot of times what people don't realize is they get a fire extinguisher and they just think, perfect, I'll put it under my cupboard and I'll have it if I need it. But they actually need to be maintained. So when you are testing your smoke alarms, which you should be doing monthly, it's a great time if you have an extinguisher to pick it up, turn it, around, back and forth. Just move it around so things don't settle, and it will actually discharge if you need it. So there's a little bit of maintenance you do with your extinguishers to make sure that they'll work when you need them.
And some of them have a gauge on that
Yes.
tell you what state it's in?
They do, yes. Your gauge the little arrow or the dial on your gauge should always be in the green. And that, I think, is pretty intuitive. So when you're moving your extinguisher around, make sure that the gauge or the dial is in the green. And then you know, okay, I've done my part for my extinguisher. It will do its part, hopefully, for me if I ever need it. Fingers crossed you don't, but hopefully it will.
Christmas time, holiday time, a lot of extra lights and wires floating around and things plugged in, and we sometimes get a little careless with those.
We do. And it's just there's so much that comes out. There are decorations and things we put up. And really in the fire service, we just call those added combustibles. They're all things that could potentially catch fire. So when you're putting lights, decorations up, when it comes to your electrical, please just plug things in properly into outlets is best. Turn them off when you're done with them. If you have a beautiful real Christmas tree, it requires daily watering. And then we are experiencing in Barrie just incredible accumulation of snow and cold. And so sometimes we bring in our heating appliances, some space heaters, we turn on our fireplaces, and those things, anything that makes heat, they need at least items 3 feet away from them so that they're not a potential hazard in.
I know years and years ago there was a lot of talk about the artificial trees and the fire hazard they could be. Are the standards better for those now?
The best thing that I can say for anything, I usually say anytime you're going to plug something into a wall, you want to make sure that you're looking at the specs on the product. So if you're getting a charger or some decorations that need an outlet that you plug in, look and make sure that everything is CSA, ULC, or ETL certified. Again, those are those standards we want to see on our products to make sure that they've been properly tested and they meet Canadian standards.
A lot of candles get lit this time of year, scented candles, celebratory candles, but we really have to be careful with those too.
We do, and it's not just us. We have to be mindful of other people or pets in our space. So candles are so attractive, the little flickering light, and sometimes we see animals obviously unintentionally starting fires because their tail knocks something over or they like to bat at the flames. So you want to be obviously mindful of your own actions, give space to the candles, never leave them unattended, but also remember who else is in your space. If we can use really sturdy candles, not those tapered candles, things in a glass jar or a metal container that can't be easily knocked over.
We have been the recipient of a lot of snow over the last 2 or 3 weeks. Well, the month of December. It started on December 1st, I think.
Yes.
And it seems like it's been nonstop. And that raises some issues around venting on the outside of the house that could cause us some trouble inside of the house. Let's visit that.
Yes, yeah. So we obviously have a lot of heat-producing appliances and things in our home, and we don't always think about the ventilation outside of our home. We're maybe safe inside, but we forget that snow accumulation can block some of our venting. And then unfortunately, if it can't get out, it's going to turn around and come back in. And that raises a lot of concern for carbon monoxide. And so carbon monoxide is odorless, colorless. You can't see it, you can't smell it, taste it. It's not like smoke. We have devices, though, in our homes. We have smoke alarms and we require carbon monoxide alarms. When there is a buildup of carbon monoxide in your home, they will sound. Sometimes it will sound, typically it's 4 beeps, beep, 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 beep. And some of our alarms even say carbon monoxide. Listen and pay attention and trust those alarms. Too often people will even call our station front desk and say, I'm not sure, but this is sounding. And it's really, really dangerous. So we want to make sure that if you hear those alarms, even though you can't see it because it's not like smoke, you get out of your house this as quickly as possible.
Yeah, get out, then make the call.
Make the call.
But also make sure the doors and windows are all closed, because that helps you figure out where it's coming from.
Exactly. We will come. Our crews will come. We would rather come in that situation, and we'd be so happy to know it's a false alarm, but we can do the proper testing for you. It's better for you to get outside to safety. If you keep the doors and windows closed, then we can properly try to figure out what might be happening and do the appropriate testing. And we've had some recent changes to our fire code as well with our carbon monoxide alarms. So before it was required just outside of where people sleep, and now we are mirroring our smoke alarm placements. So they need to now be on every level and outside of where people sleep.
So where I was thinking a fire blanket would be a great Christmas gift for
Right.
my kids in their homes, maybe they need a carbon monoxide detector.
That would be the perfect gift, because that is absolutely what people are going to need this holiday season. They are probably going to have to buy a few more to make sure that they're up to the Ontario Fire Code standards for 2026 now.
We've touched on a lot of things here. Is there anything we missed? Anything you really need to get out there?
Oh my goodness. Well, I mean, there's so many fire safety topics, but probably the tried and true that we always come back to is making sure that all of your alarms are in good working order. They give you the time that you need to get out safely. And always practicing your escape plans so that you can, especially if you have little kids in the home, so that everyone knows what to do. And fire is incredibly fast. You know, these days with all of those combustible materials in our homes and the way our homes are furnished, you have less than 2 minutes to get out to safety. So we just really want to stress that working smoke alarms are what give you the time you need to get out safely, but also making sure that you know where to go and you practice that escape plan is essential.
Kate Foster, thanks as always for coming in, dispensing some valuable advice, and best wishes to you and your family for a happy holiday season.
Thank you. Same to you.
I'm Ian McLennan. You know, it is a tough time of the year for some. Financial strain, stress, grief, and some handle it better than others. But it's okay if the season doesn't feel merry and bright, and there are resources to help people get through it. We're joined by Waypoint Center for Mental Health Care psychologist Dr. Carolyn Holding. Carolyn, a lot of Christmas carols, of course, focus on celebrating the holidays. There's no place like home for Christmas. Happy holidays. Though for some people, I guess that can be a bit of a misnomer.
Yeah, for sure. I think the thing about the holiday season, whilst it's always portrayed in a very positive way, like everyone is happy, everyone is connected, that's not the case for a lot of people. Not everyone has family to be with or family they feel safe with. Not everyone is in the financial situation they might want to be. Of course, in the Northern Hemisphere, it's when it's getting darker, and some people are affected by the weather and seasonal affective disorder. Or there's lots of reasons that it just it might not be the beautiful, happy, celebratory season that we would hope for everybody.
Yeah, or a loved one is the first Christmas without a family member that was there last year. So many factors at play. I think a lot of people might just kind of put on a fake face or a fake smile just to get through the day. Is that maybe even risky behavior to try and do? Because I think a lot of people just want to be accommodating. They don't want to, ruin the day.
Yeah, well, I guess it's okay to notice and to acknowledge that if you're not feeling it. Probably you're going to want to balance, like with people you trust, with people in your inner circle. Maybe you can be a bit more straightforward. Sometimes just spending time with others or in doing activities which are a bit fun, even if we don't feel like it, might make us feel a little bit better than maybe just isolating. Putting on a brave face is it's going to be better to kind of acknowledge your feelings and to be honest with people in your inner circle and that you can trust then they can give you a bit more support and maybe give you a little bit more of a buffer, or you can tell them how they can help.
And what have you heard maybe from people you interact with, your colleagues, patients, or who have struggled with the Christmas season? Maybe it's just one, maybe it's many. How they get over that that hump, so to speak. What do they do on Christmas Day or time leading up to the holidays and after?
I think that's an excellent question because, as we just said, Christmas is not this big wonderful celebration for everybody. In fact, a lot of people don't have that, and it's good to acknowledge that and for people to know that they're not alone in that situation. There's many people who are more isolated than they want to be, and not having that kind of Christmas caroling kind of a Christmas. I hear from clients, from colleagues, from friends that there are stresses. Maybe this is the first Christmas without a loved one who's lost. Maybe it is a sort of a chronic time of feeling like everyone else has something that you don't, feeling isolated.
Are crisis lines extra busy during this time of year, whether it's for adult or youth, and encouragement to reach out if needed?
Yes, for sure. There's always there's crisis lines available if people are really feeling the need. If they don't have someone in their inner circle that they can trust, they can speak with a trained counsellor and to talk things over and to get a bit of perspective, a listening ear.
You've been quoted as saying reaching out for help is a sign of strength, correct?
That's absolutely correct. There's more and more people are acknowledging that mental health is part of your whole, is your part of being healthy, and reaching out for help is a sign of strength. It's just I've had people who maybe I'm the first person, like that professional they've spoken to, and they've said, "Wow, that's just a load off my mind. I just feel so much better just for having spoken about it."
Are there other things people can do? I've heard from some people who said, Christmas is a tough time, so they find a place to volunteer Christmas Day or around the holidays where they're giving back to pick up their spirits.
Yes, for if Christmas, there's lots of ways to make the holiday season go better for you. If you lost somebody and you're really missing them, you can seek to make new traditions if the old ones are too painful. We are social creatures. If we're not going to be with the ones we love, then we should reach out, and there's lots of opportunities for being with other communities and volunteering or community gatherings, whether that's a spiritual practice or just volunteering or joining groups. There's opportunity there, and being with other people and helping other people actually, for a lot of people, actually makes them feel better. Everybody has something to contribute.
Let me flip the coin, Doctor, and feeling the holiday blues. Some have it the other way, where they get so, hyped up about the holidays that when it does come to an end, then it becomes a letdown. Yeah,
right. So I guess if you tend to get pretty stressed out and just overly overwrought during the holidays, it's well worth considering what pressure you're putting on yourself, whether that's worth all the stress in the end. And if the end of the holidays, when everyone goes back to their lives and you're alone again, if that's a difficult time, you can plan for that and plan to spend time with people outside of that circle and to do other things that, kind of recharge your batteries and make you feel good. It's a beautiful time of the year to be outside and enjoying nature if you're able. And that gives, exposure to sunlight is always a good thing. Exercise and just bringing your system into getting regulated in nature.
A list of resources and phone numbers that can be called by anyone needing help getting through the holiday season can be found on our website, Barrie360.com. Barrie Colts have won 5 in a row, 9 of their last 10, still first in the Central with a 5-point bulge on North Bay. For more, let's go to Barrie 360's Julius Hearn and Colts analyst Gene Pereira.
Okay, Gene, this team is still on fire. 18-8-1-4 on the season. A couple big wins over the course of the weekend, but I think you would agree in saying that two very different games for this Barrie Colts team. We'll start with a 6-1 win against Owen Sound. Barrie never on the penalty kill in that game. Aitchison and Beaudoin still in the lineup before they headed to World Junior Camp, but that game really was another complete team effort. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think that it's right up there, and it's against an Owen Sound team that has struggled here a bit of late, but they've been a very good team this year. And I think for Barrie, you're starting to see more of these complete game efforts, which something they've strived for is that consistency from puck drop to finish. And, as well, they get some revenge in an Owen Sound team that had won the 3 previous games, head-to-head games. But all around, just a really good effort by Barrie here on home ice.
Arvin Jaswald, 25 saves. Justin Hanger and Joe Salandra each getting on the score sheet. Brad Gardner and Emil Hemming each having 2 goals. For Brad Gardner, I know he's a guy that you've been saying that he really needs to step up during this World Junior window where you don't have Cole Beaudoin or Kayshawn Aitchison. Is that really the start of something for him?
Yeah, Brad, he had a good start to the year here. He cooled off a bit recently, but, he kind of stepped up big in Thursday's win. And, again, it doesn't mean that, he hasn't been necessarily getting on the scoreboard, but it's something that definitely need over this stretch here. And we're starting to see that Salandra, get going, but we're starting to see some secondary scoring from Barrie Hanser, a guy like him with some nice goals on the back end. So Barrie's going to need some guys to step up with the big guns away, and we started to see that on Thursday.
And that goal from Hanser on Thursday, I mean, that was a thing of beauty, in my opinion, seeing that on a breakaway, which is really nice. 2-1 win on Saturday against Niagara. Again, a very different game from Barrie. They only had 25 shots compared to over 40 on Thursday, and they had 31 penalty minutes for Barrie. Do you notice something slipping from game to game, or is it just kind of an off day for them?
Yeah, it's one of those games where Reddick was certainly outstanding. He was the difference maker in that one. Again, Niagara had been playing much better. They had won 3 straight coming in, so a bit of confidence and looking to get back at Barrie, which had beat them a couple of times. So, I think it's just one of those things. On the one side, yeah, you like to see more offense, definitely. Just the 2 goals, but it was enough thanks to Reddick on this night. And a big factor as well is just their ability to hang on to leads. And they took the lead in the second, and it's something that Dylan Smoskowitz had talked about, that heading into that third period, protecting the lead, and they did it much better. But no doubt, Reddick was the star of that game.
Yeah, 42 saves for him, and another elite effort from him. A lot of those 40-plus save games are really keeping Barrie in it. Meanwhile, Joe Salandra, another goal for him. This one, his first game-winning goal, as well as getting an assist on the first one. For him, it seemed like it wasn't him getting on the score sheet despite a lot of really great chances, but do you see him kind of breaking out now over the last week or so?
Yeah, I talked to Marty Williamson, about, guys that need to step up, and Salandra was one of the guys that they look to get more offense. And, it's not that, they've been really happy with his game. Physically, he's out there kind of banging and crashing, and he's been very effective in that sense. But as Dylan Smoskowitz, head coach, said, he wasn't getting rewarded, and he scored in each of the last 2 games, which is a really good sign for Joe. And I think you had that feeling, as Marty Williamson said, that he was going to pop, and maybe we're starting to see that here because he's finally starting to get rewarded and bury some of these goals. But, watching Joe over this last little bit, he's been an effective player out there. I mean, he stands out, shift in, shift out, and now he's starting to get the offense. And he was one of those guys that was brought in. He was known to be a really good finisher, and sometimes you change leagues, you find a way, but he was playing effectively, but just wasn't getting results. And it's nice to see that happen over the last 2 games. It comes at a really good time, obviously, again with the big guns away.
I mentioned again how different Thursday to Saturday was. Saturday, the first game without Boldwan and Aitchison in the lineup because they headed off to World Junior Camp. Do you think the team was still trying to get used to their presence not being there?
Those guys log a ton of ice time. And, along with Hemming that is gone now to represent Team Finland, I mean, those are three main guys. And if you look at it, too, your specialty teams, which have been much better of late, both the power play and the penalty kill, they're also big factors in that. There's no doubt Barrie's going to miss them. I mean, they're three of the best players in the Ontario Hockey League. They logged a ton of minutes, responsibility, their leadership. When you look at these situations, a lot of teams, Brantford losing 6 players, it's an opportunity for other guys to stand, kind of step up and take bigger roles. And, that's the fun part about this time of year through the holiday season. Yeah, you lose some really good players, but you get to see some young guys kind of take that next step. And that'll be a fun part over this next little bit to see just who steps up for Barrie.
So right now, at this point, we are exactly 31 games into the season, exactly halfway. How would you kind of assess the season so far, and how would you compare it to last year's team that made the conference finals?
It's funny, Julius, you say that. It's a bit, it was a bit Jekyll and Hyde, in the sense that they had a really rough start. They had a lot of games at home, didn't take advantage of them to start the year, and struggles. But one of the things, Dylan Slosky's kind of preached patience, a new coach, new system, a lot of new faces. And, credit to the Colts, and, they completely turned it around. 15 wins in the last 18 games, just one regulation loss, which is mighty impressive. And, they've tackled some big teams along that run. They've really turned things around. And, the January 10th trade deadline is around the corner, and there's no doubt for GM is going to figure out, what are they going to do? You got a team in Brantford that's very good, that's really loading up all in. And then you got to decide yourself. And for Barrie, when you go on a run like this, it's hard not to make the GM want to add pieces and the confidence. And I think that's what that's done here. I think it's shown that Barrie can be one of the top teams again. Certainly in the Eastern Conference, that Western Conference is wide open. Brantford's kind of the big dog, but there's an opportunity for Barrie to go on a long run. And it's just been a really good finish to the first half for Barrie here.
And before we get to some of the World Junior stuff, I do want to touch on another 3-3 this week. At home against Sudbury Thursday, at Brampton Friday, and then against London at home on Saturday, defending Memorial Cup champions. How do you think this 3-3 is going to go, especially after the success of the previous one?
Yeah, you look at that. Obviously, a couple of games at home too, which is big, and you face division rival in Sudbury on Thursday, a team that they played a little bit better of late, so you got to kind of not overlook them here. A chance to get a couple of wins against some division rivals, which is something. Then Friday into Brampton, and then Saturday home to London. And London's kind of struggled of late, but it's always one of those games where the big bad London Knights coming to town and a lot of attention. But there's an opportunity here for Barrie to kind of continue this run here. But like we said, the big guns are away at the World Juniors now. It's going to be an opportunity. And the big question for me coming into this weekend for Barrie is, again, obviously, goaltending is going to be there. It's going to be about scoring. Can you score enough?
I do want to ask you about London because, they're defending Memorial Cup champions. They're obviously the big bad London Knights, the team that everyone expects to be, top of the standings all the time. But this is a team that's really struggled this year. Not really characteristic of that team. They haven't lost a lot of players from their championship team last year. What do you think is wrong with that team and why they've been struggling so far this year?
I think they're a lot younger. And, the funny thing with London is, kind of their rebuild is like second in the division, finishing second, top 4 in the conference. And there's a ton of skill. It's a lot younger this year. And, there are steps. I mean, obviously Dale Hunter is going to be away here, and Mark Hunter away at the World Juniors for them. So there'll be some adjustment here. But this London team, make no mistake, it's young, but it's talented, and you can never overlook them. But look, I mean, the Western Conference, you got Owen Sound stepping up there. You got the Sioux Greyhounds making a couple of trades. a really good team. That Western Conference Flint is very, very competitive this year, and I think that's the difference. I think London got a bit younger, and I think everybody kind of else stepped up, and the West is wide open, and it's going to be really interesting here to see who jumps on board with the Sioux in terms of adding guys.
And you mentioned the Hunter brothers there, so that's a perfect segue into talking about Aitchison and Bodwin, how they're going to fit into the World Junior team. Saw some of the line combinations they're on in the last 3 practices. The first couple, Bodwin was centering Gavin McKenna, Porter Martone, and then Aitchison with Brunica on the back end. Then Bodwin with Iginla and Martone, and Aitchison with Verhoef. How do you see those roles kind of shaping out for them, and how do you think that they're going to kind of fit in now that camp's kind of started up?
Yeah, with the 2 Barrie players, I think they're going to play major roles. Bodwin returns for a second crack with the World Juniors, and after I think last year's disappointment, this is a very motivated team. It's as deep as any team at the World Juniors. Very talented. I think you can see both Aitchison and Bowden play major roles on this team. Cole Bowden, again, is a guy that you can fit into any role. It's funny. You kind of look at him as this kind of the penalty killer in this group on this Canadian team, but here he is among the leading scorers in the Ontario Hockey League, which just really tells you about his complete game and just how he's taken another step. And for Keyshawn Aitchison, his first crack at the World Juniors, but I think, again, he's going to be a major role. They look for him to be a physical guy back there, and he can play penalty minutes. And, again, another guy that you can kind of slot in. You need him on the power play, he's there. You need him on the penalty kill, he's there. So I think that's what Canada loves about the 2 Barrie Colts, is that they're both versatile. You kind of fit into any roles, and I see them playing major parts.
And for Emil Hemming, Finland wasn't very early to name their roster. In fact, they were quite late, one of the last couple nations to name their World Junior roster. But how do you see Emil fitting in and hit another crack for him at the World Juniors?
Again, it was interesting last year. Not a lot of people talked about Finland, and here they were. They got to the final. It's something that Emil came back with a silver medal. He's hungry to get a gold. But it's really interesting. When I asked him about going away at Worlds and kind of what he's looking forward to, he said about playing his, Bowden and Aitchison, and he kind of just had that grin, getting at his teammates. And I'm sure there's some fun ribbing going on between their, representing their home countries, and that's going to be fun watching them. I think it's New Year's Eve head-to-head. But, again, for look, they finished the silver medal, and he's going to take a bigger role this year with Finland. From what I understand, I've been told that they expect that he's going to be going to wear a letter with his leadership. And, for Emil as well, we watched him last year. There's an adjustment coming to a new country and so on, and I think it took him a while. After Christmas, he was outstanding in the playoffs. And this year, he's just returned from the American Hockey League, and he's just become so much more a complete player. And he's logged in a ton of penalty killing minutes. He's really taken another step in his game, and you can see why he's a first-round pick in the NHL, and I think for Finland, he's going to play a much, much bigger role for that team this year at the Worlds.
Well, I'm really excited to see how all 3 of those guys play at the World Juniors, but I'm also excited to see how this Colts team plays the next few weeks or so without these guys. So it's going to be a really fun stretch of some great junior hockey. Gene, really appreciate your time again this week.
Thanks, Julius.
This is what Barrie's talking about from Barrie 360. I'm Dan Blakely, joined by Dawn Mucci, who is in charge of
LiceSquad.com.
Right, and you've been involved with that for a long, long time.
Going on 25 years.
Yeah, so successful, obviously.
It's done a really good thing for a lot of people.
And we'll talk about that some more in a bit. We know it's been successful, but you want it to be even more successful, so you went and applied to be on the Dragon's Den.
I sure did. I've watched it religiously for 19 years, and I thought if ever there was a time to apply to be on, it should be for their milestone 20th anniversary. It's an iconic show. It does so much for entrepreneurs, and I was lucky enough to be selected out of the thousands of people who applied.
Unfortunately, we can't talk a whole lot about what happened in terms of them reaching out and helping you out. But you can talk a little bit about what happened on the show leading up to the show, what hoops you had to jump through to get there.
Absolutely. I'm sworn to secrecy. However, I will say that it is hot in that den. Standing in front of the caliber of entrepreneurs on that stage was really overwhelming for me. I was very nervous. And, I've done a lot of TV and radio to promote my business. I'm the spokesperson, so I should be used to that. But I was really nervous with this one.
Well, you got these high-powered people there, and they've got the money, and they want to make sure that they're putting it in the right place, right?
Absolutely. And a lot of people go there for the money, and some for mentorship, and some for just exposure. But I was just so grateful to have been given that opportunity to stand on that stage and to share about what we do and why we do it. And I'm looking forward to it. I think for the hour and a bit that I was on, in that room, I think we made 5 or 6 minutes of really good TV.
Were you there promoting something new to do with the business or something ongoing and that you need some help with?
We're launching a new product, and also we just started a specialty hair salon for children and families living with autism and special needs to get haircuts. So I was really there promoting everything that we do as a company.
And I think you experimented on some of the dragons while you were there. You showed me, you sent a video clip that you were allowed to send.
They sent us some promotional stuff. I didn't do a mic drop. I did a lice drop. And they weren't expecting that. And it was quite fun. I will say that I don't think they liked it. But, it's a television show, so you have to make good TV.
Yeah, exactly. Now, the show doesn't air until the new year.
Correct.
So we have to wait until then to find out what the result was for you.
Yes.
But are you feeling good about even just the exposure that you're going to get from that?
I'm feeling good about the experience as a whole, definitely. On January 8th, I won't even be in the country when the show airs, but January 8th at 8 p.m. on CBC, they will be airing my episode along with some other episodes, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they put together. As I said, it was an hour in the room for 5 or 6 minutes of television. Yeah. I will say one thing, I may or may not have busted into song. And I'll leave it at that.
All right. All the more reason to watch now, because we see you singing on social media every once in a while.
It's what I do when I get nervous.
Tell me about the dragons themselves. You alluded to them a little bit earlier, but they're a little intimidating. But on the whole, how did you find them?
They're doing their job well. And it is intimidating to stand up in front of people that have succeeded so well and that are iconic, and it's an iconic show. I was really drawn to Brian from 1-800-GOT-JUNK, the newest dragon, because he, like me, is a high school dropout, and, he built something from scratch like I did, and, I really resonate with his story. Of course, I could speak highly of all of the dragons, but he was one of the ones I was really wanting to connect with.
Advice for anybody else who wants to pursue the Dragon's Den?
I would say if you want to pursue the Dragon's Den, do your homework, get your numbers right. That is really important, the number thing. And also just be brave and bold. Go for it. This is a show that's going to platform you and put you in front of a lot of people. So don't let fear hold you back. And that's fear of failure and of success. So do it. Go on the show. If you get selected, you're one of the lucky ones because it's hard to get on that show.
All right. Lice Squad. Success story for you, obviously. Success story for the community. It's an issue that doesn't go away. How big a problem is it in the community?
2.5 million people can get lice annually. People that are needing help with haircuts that can't go to a regular salon. This is something that is of value to all communities across Canada, and we're about 30 locations strong now. But I will say this, I have to thank this community in Barrie and Innisfil for supporting me and my business. I wouldn't be where I am without the supportive community, so I just want to give a big thank you. And to you as well for inviting me to the show today.
Website, if anybody wants more information or they think they have an issue that needs to be dealt with.
LiceSquad.com or superherokids.ca.
And a phone number, perhaps?
1-888-LICE-SQUAD.
And the Dragon's Den segment is January 8th?
At 8 p.m. on CBC television.
And that's when we'll find out how successful you are with them, how convincing you were with the Dragons.
Exactly.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
And that's our program for this week. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe to What Barrie's Talking About. You can also keep up with What Barrie's Talking About on Blue Sky and X at Barrie360, on our website, Barrie360.com, and there's our daily Kickstart podcast available from any streaming service and on our website. I'm Dan Blakely.